Hey guys, today I'm going to be taking a look at the MSW-820 analog synthesizer from Michigan Synth Works. This is their latest monosynth. It's essentially an expanded form from their previous MSW-810, which was based on the Roland CMU-810. But today I'm just going to kind of go over some of the features of this synth and talk about what I like about it and what I think it's useful for. So let's go ahead and get into it. Let's look at the I/O first. We've got 1/8" jacks for everything. TRS MIDI in. You can see that. TRS MIDI in. Clock input for the LFO rate. Gate and volt per octave. From modular synth. CV, filter control. LFO mod. And you've got audio input to run audio through the filter and mix with the sound of the synth itself, as well as a 1/8" main out. Just be aware that this is unbalanced out, so you may need to buy a TS 1/8" to TS 1/4" adapter to plug this into your interface or mixer or whatever you're using if you're not just going to run it into a modular setup. One other thing to note is this device is available as a desktop unit and a Eurorack unit, but it's not convertible. As you can see, the enclosure doesn't allow for you to pull this front panel off and just stick it into a Eurorack setup. If you want to put it in a Eurorack, you'll have to purchase the Eurorack version. And I think the main difference with that is that you've got all the I/O over here on the right instead of on the back, like the desktop unit. Let's look at the VCOs. We've got two VCOs on this synth. They are square saw shape with a blend in between. We've got pulse width mod, and that can be done with LFO amount or envelope amount. So you have some flexibility with shape there. 7-octave total range on this, and you've got some octave switches here for each oscillator, so you can quickly move it up and down. VCO1 has envelope mod for the pitch, and VCO2 has an LFO mod for the pitch. This LFO only applies to VCO2, so you can't do like a global vibrato or anything like that. So you've got two hard sync modes on this thing. In version 1, VCO2 will track the pitch of whatever's played on the keyboard. So you get more of a static kind of sync thing. Or version 2, VCO2 will just stay static, so you'll get some kind of weird overtones. And then you also have this trig switch as well. From what I understand, this will essentially reset the VCOs on the gate input. So whenever you play a key, it'll restart the VCO at its 0 point. In version 1, it only will reset oscillator 1 on the gate. Trig condition 2, it'll reset VCO 1 and VCO 2. So here's 1. You don't hear too much difference, but you can sort of hear it in the attack. And here's version 2. Just take it off the sync mode. Kind of a subtle difference, but it's there. Alright, the next section is the mixer section. As you can see, we've got a fader for external audio. This one is pre-filter, this level. And then we've got 2 levels for oscillator 1 and 2. We've also got a sub-oscillator. This is a square sub-oscillator. And we've got 3 modes for that. This sub-oscillator will follow VCO1, so you can be an octave below VCO1, or 2 octaves below VCO1, or 2 with a more pulse shape. So a little bit of tonal variety there. We also have a noise oscillator down here. A little hard to see on the camera, but you have a small button underneath the knob here that'll scroll through the different noise types. It's digital, so you have 8 different noise types. And those are white, pink, hex invert, crackle, orgone, and sonar. They're pretty good for little percussion sounds, I think. So it gives you a lot of variety there. Alright, and then our next section is the filter section. This kind of is what gives this synth its most character, I think. You get 16 different filter modes on this thing. Essentially, you've got an 8-way switch up here, A-B down here. So you can kind of use this to navigate through all 16 of those modes. What I've figured out is that the A-B switch here is really affecting the resonance. So in A mode, in A mode, you have a more polite resonance even when it's cranked all the way up like that. And then in B mode, you start to get into self-oscillation territory there. But let's scroll through the different types here. Let's turn the resonance down here. So the 2 on the left are your low-pass filters. And I'll switch it. Not too much of a difference between A and B there. Again, that's just working with the resonance. But the first 2 are your low-pass filters, so I switch it up, and you get a different slope, more shallow slope. The next 2 are high-pass filters. Again, with 2 different slopes. And then we have some bandpass filters. Again, with 2 different slopes. And then the last 2 have an added all-pass filter, which sort of creates a notch and kind of sounds phaser-like. And I believe the filter around that is also these are also your 2 bandpass filters with different slopes as well. So it's really cool when you modulate that. Sort of get a phaser type thing. And yeah, you kind of have two different characters for that. Now, I haven't fully deciphered what these symbols mean, what they're meant to indicate. But just keep that in mind that, from left to right, you have low pass, high pass, band pass with notch. So, not too hard to keep track of. And then you have, your A and B resonance as well. Now, we also have a knob over to the left that's just labeled this. So, I was really confused by this at first, but what it does is it takes the triangle wave output from, which is left over from the VCO1 3340 chip, and it applies audio rate filter modulation on this knob. And it is an attenuverter, so you have two different directions you can take that. The 0 point is off, in the middle, I mean. So let's see if we can get something happening with that. I found you can really hear it when you crank the resonance. You can almost get like an FM sort of thing. Let's go back to low pass. There we go. So let's hear what it sounds like normally. So it kind of just adds a little extra grit to the filter, which I think is cool. Get some more crazy character out of it. And you can even kind of do like some FM drum sounds like I was playing before. It's pretty cool. Alright. Then we have VCF mod down here at the bottom. These are all attenuverters as well. So if you look over at the left here, you can see the 0 point is like 2/3 of the way down. So it's a little bit tricky to dial these in because there's no detent to turn it off. Like it doesn't catch there. So you kind of, especially with the LFO, you can hear that it's still sort of going there, even so you really have to dial it in to fully turn it off. Just something to be aware of. Then yeah, you've got your VCF envelope amount here. LFO pitch tracking, so it'll track the whatever notes are played on the keyboard. And then external CV amount here, which comes from the input on the back. Then the next section is the LFO section. We've got 8 different wave shapes here with and they're all blendable, so it's not like a switched pot here. It's all blendable, which is cool. Let's see, you've got sine, square, triangle, ramp, saw, like an exponential saw here, then sample and hold, and then let's see, what do they call it? Smoothed random all the way to the right, which is kind of like a smoothed out sample and hold. Here, let's do that with the pitch, maybe. So yeah, you have some blend between all of those. You got your rate controlled at the top, and then 2 reset modes. You have reset 1, which is just resets the LFO on the gate when you play a note, or you can turn the reset off in the middle, and reset 2, which will reset the LFO on the gate, but you have some phase control. This knob below it, the fade knob, it'll turn into a phase control, so you can choose what point it starts at. Let me try to get. So yeah, you have a little bit of control on what point it starts at, which is cool. It's not something I see offered on many LFOs. Then you have another external mix knob. This is essentially a post-filter external level, as opposed to the pre-filter over here in the mixer section. And then we have a main out volume VCA control. Then after that, we just have our envelopes over here. So our main mod envelope, it goes to our modulation bus for the VCO and the VCF. And then, the VCA obviously is just for the level. We also have a nifty little trigger button here. So you can just play it right from the front. I mean, it only does whatever the last note you played. But it's kind of handy for like percussion things or just testing if you have sound coming out of the back of this. So it's, handy for like troubleshooting, I think. You have a little envelope indicators here, as well as an bipolar LFO indicator. So you can kind of, maybe you can see that. Yeah. You can tell what rate it's at. But yeah, that's essentially a breakdown of the whole synth. Overall, I think it's pretty crazy how much complexity is packed into this little desktop synth. Like, I know it's a somewhat standard VCO and a VCF with modulation and a VCA envelope and everything. That's pretty standard for monosynth. But you get these little weird settings on here that make it really unique, like the sync setting here over here. Like, I don't see that on many other monosynths, where it stays static on VCO 2. That's pretty cool. This trig condition thing, I've like never seen that. I know it's subtle, but it certainly does shape it differently. And then this knob, I've never seen that. Like built-in VCF audio rate modulation. I think that's awesome. Just the flexibility with the filter in general is so cool. Like having that little phaser thing, like I wish more synths would do that. This sounds like something that Yellow Magic Orchestra would use, like especially with the VCO modulation over here. It sounds like some of their weird little percussion sounds in their music. Kind of similar to that. And I've also sort of compared it to like the sound effects in Doctor Who. Like you can get some crazy little sound effects out of it like that. Like the notch filter kind of makes it ideal for that. I think that's awesome. I mean, of course, it's a great bass machine as well. Like, it sounds like an SH-101. Even for that alone, if you just want an SH-101 sound, I think it's great for that. You know, to get it as a hardware unit and have like a lot of extra flexibility built in, that alone makes it worth the price point. Which by the way is $499. So not bad, pretty comparable to some other little desktop synths of this size and complexity. So I think it's worth that price. But there are a couple things that bother me. Like, it can be a little tricky to dial in this LFO. Like, if you just want to turn it off, like, there's no detents here on these attenuverters. That kind of bothers me. So it's hard to fully turn the LFO off over here if you want to. Like, you can still hear it subtly there. So I don't know, that bothers me. I wish there were center detents on here. I mean, I know they probably don't make sliders with detents at like the 1/3 mark like here. So probably hard to find, but I wish it was scaled so that maybe these were in the middle instead of like 2/3 of the way down. I don't know. It's just an interesting choice to me. The other thing that sort of bothers me is these tiny little master tuning knobs, or the coarse tuning knobs. Really hard to dial in. The slightest touch moves it a lot. So I just wish it was easier to keep in tune. If you want to actually tune it to your song, it might take a little bit of dexterity there to get to dial in these tiny little 1/4-inch knobs here. Other than that, I think it's a great synth. It's really just two little user experience things there that make it a little bit difficult to navigate this synth, but it's really not bad. It's pretty easy to understand. You might need to go back to the product page to look at what the hell these trig conditions are, because they're not explicitly stated on the front panel. And maybe the same with the sync and the reset over here. It's not immediately apparent what those do, but once you spend a little bit of time with it, maybe you'll figure out that okay, this trig switch over here, maybe it doesn't always make a big enough difference that I really have to worry about it. So you can think of it that way. Same with the reset, like, it's a really subtle difference, so you can take it or leave it, I guess. It's there if you want it. You just kind of have to memorize a couple things. And yeah, these filter modes, like, I haven't been able to figure out what the symbols mean. Like, I've kind of just had to memorize what each of the switch positions do. So not really straightforward on the front panel, like what that means. But, once you spend a couple hours with this, or even an hour, you can kind of figure out, okay, that's kind of what it's doing at each of these positions. At the very least, I mean, you can at least scroll through them randomly until you find one you like. It kind of makes a good little happy accident machine that way, which is cool. Overall, I think it's a great synth. I think it's worth the $500 price point. Let me know what you guys think. I appreciate you guys making it to the end of the video. This is my first video on this channel, so I appreciate all the support I can get. I'm hoping to release some more videos like this, where I kind of go over some features of synths and maybe some sound design tips, or just kind of go over whatever I'm interested in the world of synthesis. Yeah, let me know what you guys think.